I'm sitting at the head of my own dining table, surrounded by candlelight and white roses that cost me $300 from the florist on Greenwich Avenue, celebrating my 58th birthday. The crystal chandelier above catches the light just right, the way it always does in this house that I bought with my own money 23 years ago. Tristan, my only son, stands up with his champagne flute. Cristal, $400 a bottle, charged to my corporate card 3 days ago, and I feel something warm bloom in my chest. Finally, I think. Finally, a moment where he sees me, where he acknowledges everything I've done, everything I've sacrificed, everything I've given. He smiles. God, that smile. It's Nathaniel's smile, the same one that made me fall in love 35 years ago, the same one that disappeared into a coffin 8 years ago when my husband's heart gave out at 58. The exact age I am right now. The irony isn't lost on me. I want to make a toast, Tristan says, his voice carrying that confident tone he uses at work, the one he thinks makes him sound like a serious financial analyst instead of a junior associate who still needs his mother to cover his Tesla payments. To the woman who made this evening possible. My heart swells. Saffron, my daughter-in-law, is smiling too, that practiced smile she learned in law school, the one that doesn't quite reach her eyes. Pearl and Finn, my grandchildren, are fidgeting in their seats. 7 and 5 years old, too young to sit through an adult dinner party, but I insisted they be here. I wanted my babies at my birthday. The other guests, mostly Tristan's friends and colleagues, lean forward with polite interest. To the woman who brought us all together tonight, Tristan continues, raising his glass higher. His smile widens. Let's toast to the old lady who only knows how to cause trouble and ask for money. The words hit me like a physical blow. For a moment, I think I've misheard. My brain scrambles to reinterpret what he just said, to find some alternate meaning, some joke I'm not getting. But then he laughs, this sharp, cruel bark of amusement, and the sound cuts through any remaining hope. Saffron laughs too, that nervous titter she does when she's uncomfortable but trying to seem sophisticated. Around the table, his friends shift in their seats. Someone coughs. A woman I don't know, one of Saffron's colleagues, I think, brings her napkin to her mouth. They laugh. But it's the worst kind of laughter. Embarrassed, constrained, the kind that says we all know this is wrong, but we're going to go along with it anyway, because confrontation is uncomfortable. I sit very still. My hands are in my lap, fingers interlaced, nails, freshly manicured yesterday at the salon, $75, pressing into my palms. I've spent 30 years negotiating luxury real estate deals, sitting across from billionaires and celebrities, maintaining composure through collapsed deals and hostile negotiations. I know how to control my face. I know how to not let them see it land. But Pearl sees. My granddaughter stops eating her chicken, the organic, free-range chicken I special ordered from that farm in Litchfield County, and her green eyes, so much like mine, fix on me with an expression of confused concern. She's 7. She doesn't understand what just happened, but she knows it wasn't nice. She knows Daddy just said something mean to Grandma. Finn keeps playing with his fork, oblivious. I'm grateful for that, at least. 5 is still young enough for mercy. Tristan, someone murmurs. A man at the far end of the table, one of his colleagues from the firm. Come on, man. What? My son shrugs, still smiling, still holding that champagne flute aloft. It's just a joke. Mom knows I'm kidding. Right, Mom? He looks at me then, and I see it. I see the calculation behind his eyes, the way he's gauging my reaction, the way he's already preparing his defense if I push back. He's banking on my compliance, on my years of swallowing hurt feelings, on my desperate need to keep him close after losing Nathaniel. He's banking on me laughing it off, brushing it aside, being the good sport, because that's what I always do. I think about the $850,000 I put down on his Manhattan apartment 3 years ago because he said he needed to live in the city for work. I think about the $75,000 Tesla sitting in his garage because he said he couldn't possibly show up to client meetings in anything less. I think about the $40,000 in credit card debt I cleared last year when his can't-miss cryptocurrency investment crashed. I think about the monthly checks I've written, the loans that were never repaid, the urgent calls about opportunities that required immediate cash transfers. $380,000 in the last 3 years alone. I know the exact number because I reviewed my financial statements last week with my accountant. He asked me about the large transfers to Tristan's account. Family support, I told him. He gave me a look that said more than words ever could. And this is what I get. This is my birthday present. Public humiliation in my own home, in front of strangers, while my grandchildren watch. I place my linen napkin, the Italian linens I bought for this dinner, $200 for a set of 12, on the table beside my plate. The motion is deliberate, careful. I stand up, my chair scraping softly against the hardwood floor. Every eye in the room is on me now. The laughter has died completely. I walk around the table to where Pearl and Finn are sitting. Pearl is looking up at me with those worried eyes, and I see tears threatening at the corners. My sweet, sensitive girl. I lean down and kiss her forehead, breathing in the strawberry scent of her shampoo. Then I kiss Finn's cheek, and he giggles because my lips tickle his skin. "Grandma has to go now, babies," I whisper. "But I'll see you very soon, I promise." "But we didn't have cake yet," Pearl protests, her voice small. "You have the cake, sweetheart. You and Finn have as much as you want." I straighten up. Tristan is still standing at the other end of the table, the champagne flute lowered now, his expression shifting into something that might be regret or might just be annoyance that his joke didn't land the way he expected. Saffron is staring at her plate, her face flushed. "Thank you for the party," I say. My voice is steady, calm, the same voice I use when telling a difficult client that their offer has been rejected. Polite, professional, final. I walk out of my own dining room, through my own foyer, and out my own front door. Nobody stops me. Nobody calls after me. I hear murmured voices starting up behind me. Probably Tristan explaining that his mother is being dramatic, that she can't take a joke, that she's always been too sensitive. The October air is cool against my skin. I left my wrap inside, a cashmere shawl that cost $300, but I'm not going back for it. I walk down my own driveway, past the Range Rover I bought myself last year, past the meticulously maintained gardens I pay a landscaping company $4,000 a month to keep perfect, past the security gate that I had installed for $50,000 after a string of burglaries in Greenwich 2 years ago. I walk until I reach the street, until I'm standing under the glow of a street lamp, until I can breathe again without feeling like my chest is being crushed. Then I pull out my phone, the iPhone I bought Tristan for his last birthday, $800, and he complained it wasn't the Pro Max. And I call the one person who has been telling me for years that this would happen. "B," I say when she answers, "I need you to come get me." "Aurelia, what happened? Are you okay?" "I'm standing on Mill Creek Road outside my house. Can you come get me?" "I'm leaving now. Stay on the phone with me." I listen to her moving around, grabbing her keys, starting her car. Beatrix Wu has been my best friend for 25 years, since we met at a charity auction and bonded over our shared exhaustion with Greenwich social politics. She owns an art gallery in Soho. She never married, and she has never, not once, asked me for money. She's offered to lend me money when she thought I needed it. She's the only person in my life who sees me as Aurelia, not as a wallet with legs. "Tell me what happened," she says, and I hear her car engine in the background. "He called me an old lady who only knows how to cause trouble and ask for money at my birthday dinner, in front of everyone." There's a long silence. Then, "That motherfucker!" I laugh. It comes out harsh and broken, but it's a laugh. He was toasting me, with the $400 champagne I bought. "I'm 10 minutes away. Do not go back in that house." "I'm not going back." "Good. Because we're going to my place, and you're going to tell me everything, and then we're going to figure out what happens next." What happens next? That phrase rattles around in my head as I stand there under the street lamp, watching my breath make small clouds in the October air. What happens next? For 8 years, since Nathaniel died, what happened next was me trying to fill the hole he left behind. Trying to be enough for Tristan. Trying to make sure my son never felt the loss of his father through financial strain. Trying to prove that I could take care of him the way Nathaniel always did. But Nathaniel never took care of Tristan, not really. He indulged him. He bought him things instead of teaching him values. He gave him money instead of responsibilities. And when my husband died, I took over that role without questioning whether it was the right thing to do. I became the backup bank, the emergency fund, the eternal safety net. And my son learned to resent me for it. Learned to see me as an obligation, a burden, an old woman who exists to serve his needs and deserves mockery when she dares to expect anything in return. Not even gratitude. Just basic human decency. Just not being humiliated on my own birthday in my own home. Headlights appear at the end of the street. Bee's silver Mercedes pulls up beside me, and she leans over to push open the passenger door. I climb in, and she looks at me with an expression of such fierce protectiveness that I feel something crack inside my chest. "Seatbelt," she says, and I buckle up. We drive in silence for a few minutes, leaving Greenwich behind, heading toward the highway. Then she says, "You know what you have to do, right?" I know. "Are you ready to do it?" I think about Pearl's worried eyes. I think about Finn's innocent giggles. I think about the $380,000 transferred over 3 years. I think about the mortgage and the Tesla and the cryptocurrency debts and the monthly checks and the urgent phone calls. I think about my son standing at the head of my table, toasting to the old lady who causes trouble and asks for money. I think about Tuesday, 4 days from now, the day I have an appointment with my estate attorney to review my will, an appointment I scheduled 3 months ago when I first started feeling like something was deeply wrong in my relationship with Tristan, but couldn't quite name what it was. Now I can name it. Now I know exactly what it is. "Yes," I say. "I'm ready." "What are you going to do?" "On Tuesday," I tell her, watching the lights of Greenwich recede in the side mirror. "I'm leaving him a little surprise." Bee reaches over and squeezes my hand. "Good," she says. "It's about damn time." 8 years ago, when I got the call that Nathaniel had collapsed in his office, I was in the middle of closing a deal on a $12 million estate in Bellhaven. The client was a hedge fund manager from Manhattan, and we were literally signing the final documents when my phone rang. I almost didn't answer it. That decision haunts me sometimes, the fact that I hesitated, that for a split second I weighed my commission against whatever the interruption might be. I answered. It was Nathaniel's assistant, her voice high and panicked. "Mrs. Mercer, you need to come to Greenwich Hospital right now. Your husband, he collapsed. They think it was his heart." I left everything on the table. The client had to wait 3 days for me to come back and finish the paperwork, but by then, it didn't matter because Nathaniel was already gone. 58 years old, a massive heart attack at his desk, dead before the ambulance arrived. The same age I am now, which is why this birthday felt particularly weighted with significance, why I wanted it to be special, why I wanted my family around me. Tristan was 24 when his father died. Fresh out of business school, just starting his first job at a financial firm in Manhattan, full of ambition and confidence, and that particular arrogance that comes from never having truly struggled. Nathaniel had made sure of that. My husband came from old money, not massive wealth, but enough to smooth all the rough edges out of life. Enough for private schools and summer homes and cars for birthdays and an Ivy League education without student loans. I came from nothing. My father was a high school teacher in Providence, my mother a dental hygienist. I put myself through state college working 3 jobs, got my real estate license at 22, and spent the next decade clawing my way up from showing studio apartments to representing luxury properties. When I met Nathaniel at a charity gala when I was 26, he was charmed by what he called my work ethic and my ambition. What he didn't say, but what I understood later, was that he liked the idea of a wife who could support herself, who didn't need his family money, who came with no expectations. We had a good marriage, not passionate, not the stuff of romance novels, but solid, respectful. We wanted the same things: stability, success, a nice home, a family. When Tristan was born 2 years after our wedding, Nathaniel was overjoyed. He'd always wanted a son. He had plans for Tristan, the right schools, the right connections, the right career path, and he had the means to make it all happen. But somewhere along the way, providing for our son became the same thing as indulging him. Every tantrum was met with a gift. Every disappointment was soothed with money. Tristan wanted a car at 16. Nathaniel bought him a BMW. Tristan struggled with college applications. Nathaniel made phone calls to alumni connections, and suddenly our son was accepted to schools that should have been reaches. Tristan wanted to live in Manhattan after graduation. Nathaniel co-signed a lease on an apartment our son couldn't possibly afford on an entry-level salary. I watched it happen. I even participated in it because disagreeing with Nathaniel about Tristan was the one thing that could turn our respectful marriage into something cold and tense. "You're too hard on him," he'd say, when I suggested maybe our son should learn to budget, to save, to experience consequences. "He's young. He'll figure it out. Why make him struggle when we don't have to?" "Because struggle teaches you things," I wanted to say. Because I learned more from my 3 minimum wage jobs in college than I ever learned in a classroom. Because knowing what it feels like to choose between paying rent and buying groceries makes you appreciate stability when you finally have it. But I didn't say those things. I stayed quiet. I let my husband handle our son his way. And then Nathaniel died. And suddenly I was the only parent left, and Tristan was drowning. He didn't know how to manage money because he'd never had to. He didn't know how to live within his means because he'd never had means. He'd always had access to someone else's means. The apartment Nathaniel had co-signed, Tristan couldn't afford it on his own. The BMW? The insurance alone was eating a quarter of his paycheck. The lifestyle he'd grown accustomed to, the restaurants, the bars, the weekend trips to the Hamptons, was completely unsustainable on a junior analyst's salary. So he called me. And I, drowning in my own grief, desperate to hold on to the only family I had left, said yes to everything, to all of it. The apartment became my problem. The car payments became my problem. The credit card bills and the emergency expenses and the investments that required immediate capital. All of it became my problem. And I told myself I was helping him through a difficult transition. I told myself he was grieving. I told myself it was temporary, that he just needed time to find his footing, that eventually he'd stabilize and become independent. That was 8 years ago. He never became independent. If anything, he became more dependent, more entitled, more comfortable with the arrangement where I funded his lifestyle, and he pretended to be a successful Manhattan professional. I met Saffron 2 years after Nathaniel died. Tristan brought her to Sunday dinner at my house. By then, he'd stopped visiting unless I invited him, and sometimes not even then, unless I sweetened the invitation with tickets to something or a gift card to his favorite restaurant. She was pretty, polished, ambitious. A corporate lawyer at a mid-size firm, she told me. Georgetown Law. She came from a middle-class family in Pennsylvania. Her father was a professor, her mother a nurse. I liked her at first. I thought maybe she'd be good for Tristan, that maybe she'd bring some financial sense into his life, that maybe a woman who'd worked her way through law school would help my son understand the value of money. I was so naive. What I didn't see at first was that Saffron came from a family that had spent her entire childhood stretching to appear more prosperous than they were. Designer knockoffs and carefully managed social media posts and a constant anxiety about maintaining appearances. She'd married Tristan partly because she loved him, but also partly because she loved what his last name represented. Old money, stability, status. Except Tristan didn't have old money. His father's family money had been divided among several children, and Nathaniel's portion had mostly gone to maintaining the lifestyle he wanted. What Tristan had was me. My money, my very new money, earned through 30 years of 60-hour work weeks and negotiation and networking and sacrifice. They got married 6 years ago. I paid for the wedding. $85,000 for 200 guests at a country club in Fairfield County. Saffron wanted the fairy tale, and I wanted my son to be happy, so I wrote the checks, all of them. The dress, the flowers, the band, the open bar, the honeymoon in Bora Bora, all of it. Pearl was born a year later. I was overjoyed. A grandchild, I thought. A chance to be part of a real family again. A chance to watch a child grow up and maybe, have the opportunity to be the kind of grandmother who teaches values instead of just buying things. But I couldn't teach values when my son and daughter-in-law were teaching the opposite by example. I'd watch them show up at my house in designer clothes they couldn't afford, driving a car I'd bought, fresh from a vacation I'd funded, and they'd tell Pearl about how hard Daddy works, how successful Mommy is. The lies embedded themselves so deeply that I think even they started believing them. Finn was born 3 years ago. 2 grandchildren now, 2 beautiful babies that I loved with my whole heart, and 2 more mouths to feed, 2 more college funds to worry about, 2 more reasons for Tristan to call me asking for money because the kids need this or that. Private preschool, music lessons, a bigger apartment because the 2-bedroom wasn't enough anymore. I gave him the down payment on the 3-bedroom. $850,000. That's when B sat me down and told me I was being used. That's when she showed me the math, the transfers, the patterns, the way the asks increased every year. That's when she said the words I didn't want to hear. He doesn't love you, Aurelia. He loves your bank account. I told her she was wrong. I told her Tristan was just going through a rough patch, that the cost of living in Manhattan was insane, that he was doing his best. I made excuses. I rationalized. I did everything except face the truth. The truth was that I'd created a monster, not intentionally, not maliciously. But I'd taken Nathaniel's indulgence and multiplied it by my own guilt and grief and loneliness. And I'd produced a 32-year-old man who genuinely believed that his mother's money was his birthright, and that any expectation of gratitude or respect was unreasonable. B asked me once why I kept giving. I told her it was because I loved him. She looked at me with so much sadness and said, "Love shouldn't cost you $380,000 in 3 years, Aurelia. That's not love. That's extortion dressed up in family obligation." But what was I supposed to do? Cut him off? Risk never seeing my grandchildren? Risk losing the only family I had left? So I kept writing the checks. I kept answering the calls. I kept pretending that everything was normal, that this was just what family did for each other. And all the while, a part of me knew. A part of me saw the contempt growing in my son's eyes, the way he'd sigh when I called, the way he'd cut visits short, the way he'd avoid me unless he needed something, the way Saffron would smile that fake smile and make passive-aggressive comments about how lucky Tristan was to have such a generous mother. That's the context I was carrying when I planned my birthday dinner. That's the weight I was holding when I sent out the invitations and ordered the flowers and bought the expensive champagne. I wanted one night, one evening, where my family would gather and celebrate me, not my wallet, where my son would look at me and see his mother, not an ATM with a pulse. Instead, I got a toast to an old lady who causes trouble and asks for money. I got public humiliation. I got proof, undeniable, and witnesses of what I'd been refusing to see for years. And that's why, on Tuesday, I'm going to do something I should have done 8 years ago. I spend the weekend at B's loft in Soho. She has a guest room that overlooks the street, all exposed brick and hardwood floors and abstract art on the walls. It's the opposite of my Greenwich house, with its careful neutrals and traditional furniture and everything chosen to project a specific image of success and stability. Here, I can breathe. Here, nobody wants anything from me except my company. Saturday morning, B makes coffee, and we sit at her kitchen island while I tell her everything. Not just about the birthday dinner, but about all of it. The $850,000 apartment, the Tesla, the cryptocurrency debts, the monthly checks that have become so routine I barely think about them anymore, the vacations I've funded, the emergencies that always seem to require immediate cash transfers. She listens without interrupting, which is one of the things I love most about her. She doesn't jump in with solutions or judgments. She just lets me talk until I've emptied out all the poison that's been accumulating in my chest for years. When I finally stop, she refills my coffee and says, $380,000 in 3 years. That's what you told me last month. Yes. And that's just the documented transfers. That doesn't include the things you paid for directly. The wedding, the furniture for their apartment, I know, I cut her off. I know the number is higher. I just don't want to calculate exactly how much higher, because then I'd have to face what a complete fool I've been. You're not a fool. You're a mother who loves her son. Those aren't mutually exclusive categories. She smiles at that, sad but genuine. No, I suppose they're not. So what are you going to do? I have an appointment with Harold on Tuesday, my estate attorney. I scheduled it 3 months ago for a routine review, but now I trail off, staring into my coffee. Now I think it's time to make some changes. What kind of changes? I tell her. I tell her about the trust fund I'm going to establish for Pearl and Finn, inaccessible to their parents until the children turn 25. I tell her about the charitable donations I'm planning, organizations that help elderly people who've been financially abused by family members. The irony isn't lost on either of us. I tell her about reducing Tristan's inheritance to $1, a deliberate, legally significant amount that proves I didn't forget him. I chose to disinherit him. What about access to the grandchildren? B asks. Saffron will use them as leverage. You know she will. I know. That's why I'm also going to talk to a family lawyer. I want to understand my rights as a grandparent. I want to know what legal protections I have. B nods slowly. This is going to get ugly, Aurelia. You know that, right? Tristan isn't going to just accept this. He'll fight back. Let him fight. I'm done being afraid of losing him. I think I already lost him years ago. I've just been too desperate to admit it. We spend the rest of Saturday planning. B, who has no children and has spent her entire adult life building a successful business through careful financial management, helps me make lists. Documents I'll need, questions I should ask, scenarios I should prepare for. By the time we go to bed Saturday night, I have a notebook full of action items and a clarity I haven't felt in years. Sunday morning, my phone starts ringing. It's Tristan. I stare at the screen, his name flashing, and I don't answer. He calls again and again. After the 5th call, B looks at me and says, "You should probably talk to him. Get it over with." I pick up on the 6th call. "Hello? Mom? Jesus, finally. Where are you? Are you okay?" The concern in his voice is almost convincing. Almost. "I'm fine. I'm with B." "You just left. In the middle of your own birthday dinner. You just walked out." Yes, I did. Everyone was really uncomfortable. Saffron was upset. Pearl kept asking where you went. I close my eyes. He's doing it already, turning this around, making me the problem. Making me the one who caused a scene, who made everyone uncomfortable, who upset the children. "Tristan, do you remember what you said? When you gave that toast?" There's a pause. "It was just a joke, Mom. I was trying to lighten the mood. You know how formal these dinners can get. You called me an old lady who only knows how to cause trouble and ask for money. I didn't mean it like that. You're being too sensitive." And there it is, the pivot, the gaslighting, the suggestion that my reaction is the problem, not his action. I've heard this pattern before, dozens of times, whenever I've tried to push back against something he's done. But this time, something is different. This time, I'm not alone in a big empty house, drowning in grief and guilt. This time, I'm sitting in B's kitchen with sunshine coming through the windows, and I can see the manipulation for exactly what it is. I'm not being too sensitive. You were cruel. You humiliated me in front of your friends in my own home. Oh, come on. Nobody thought. And the irony, Tristan, is that you got it backwards. I don't ask you for money. You ask me. You've asked me for $380,000 in the last 3 years alone. Silence. Long enough that I think he might have hung up. Then, I didn't ask for that much. Yes, you did. I have the bank records. Every transfer, every check, every credit card payment I made on your behalf. $380,000. Those weren't gifts. Those were loans. I'm going to pay you back. I laugh. I can't help it. It comes out bitter and harsh. When exactly? You've been saying that for 8 years. When are you going to pay me back, Tristan? When my career takes off. When I get promoted. When you're 32 years old. If your career hasn't taken off by now, maybe it's time to consider that you're not as good at this as you think you are. Or maybe it's time to consider that you've been coasting on my money instead of actually developing skills. That's not fair. No, what's not fair is working 60-hour weeks for 30 years to build something and then having your only child treat you like an ATM with a pulse. What's not fair is sacrificing and saving and investing and then watching it all drain away into someone else's lifestyle. What's not fair is being called an old lady who causes trouble on your own birthday when you haven't caused anything except opportunities for your ungrateful son. My voice has risen. B reaches over and puts her hand on my arm, grounding me. I take a breath. Mom, I'm sorry, okay? I'm sorry. The toast was inappropriate. I shouldn't have said that. Can we just move past this? No. What do you mean, no? I mean, I'm not moving past this. I'm not pretending it didn't happen. I'm not going back to normal. So what, you're just going to punish me, cut me off, never see your grandchildren again? I would never cut off my grandchildren. But yes, the financial support is ending, effective immediately. Another long silence. Then his voice changes, gets harder. You're serious? Completely. Mom, I have bills. I have a family to support. I can't just... Then I suggest you figure out how to support them on your salary, like every other adult in the world does. The apartment alone is $6,000 a month. My salary doesn't... Then move. Find something you can afford. Plenty of families live in Queens or Brooklyn and survive just fine. You want me to move my children to Queens? Are you kidding? I want you to live within your means. I want you to take responsibility for your own life. I want you to stop treating me like an endless source of funding for a lifestyle you haven't earned. I can't believe this. One stupid joke, and you're willing to destroy your relationship with your only son? It wasn't one stupid joke, Tristan. It was 8 years of increasing entitlement and disrespect. It was $380,000 taken for granted. It was every time you sighed when I called, every visit you cut short, every holiday you tried to skip unless I offered something to sweeten the deal. The toast was just the moment I finally opened my eyes and saw clearly what our relationship has become. And what's that? A transaction, where I pay and pay and pay, and you take and take and take, and neither of us is happy, but I'm the only one pretending we're a family. I hear him breathing on the other end of the line. When he speaks again, his voice is cold. Fine. If that's how you feel, if that's how you want to play this, then fine. But don't expect to see Pearl and Finn anymore. Saffron and I aren't going to expose our children to this kind of toxic behavior. My heart clenches. There it is. The threat I knew was coming. The weapon I knew he'd use. You're going to keep my grandchildren from me because I won't fund your apartment? I'm going to protect my children from someone who clearly has no respect for their father. I have plenty of respect for their father. Or I did, until their father proved he had none for me. Goodbye, Mom. When you're ready to apologize and act like an adult, you know where to find me. He hangs up. I sit there holding my phone, staring at the black screen, and I feel something inside me harden into steel. B is watching me, concerned. He threatened to keep the kids from me, I say. Of course he did. It's the only leverage he has left. I need to call that family lawyer. Today. It's Sunday. I don't care. I need to know what my rights are. I need to know what I can do. B gets up and comes around the counter, wraps her arms around me. I let myself lean into her, let myself feel the fear and anger and grief for just a moment before I lock it all back down. I can fall apart later. Right now, I need to be strategic. We'll figure it out, B says. I promise you, we'll figure it out. The family lawyer's name is Rebecca Goldstein, and she agrees to meet me Monday morning at her office in Midtown. I take the train in from Greenwich, something I haven't done in years, and the anonymity of it feels oddly liberating. No one knows me here. No one wants anything from me. I'm just another woman in business, casual riding the Metro North into the city. Rebecca's office is sleek and modern, all glass and chrome. She's maybe 45, expensively dressed, with sharp eyes that miss nothing. I tell her everything: the financial history, the birthday dinner, Tristan's threat about the grandchildren. She listens, takes notes, and when I'm finished, she leans back in her chair and considers me. Grandparent rights vary by state, she says. In Connecticut, you can petition for visitation if it's in the best interest of the children. You'll need to prove that you have a substantial relationship with them and that being denied access would harm them. I've been actively involved in their lives since they were born. I see them, saw them, at least twice a month, more during summers and holidays. Good. Do you have documentation, photos, emails, text messages showing regular contact and involvement? Yes, hundreds of texts, thousands of photos. Even better. Now, here's the hard part. If you change your will and cut Tristan off financially, he and his wife will argue that you're being vindictive, that you're using the grandchildren as pawns, that you're emotionally unstable. I'm not unstable. I'm setting boundaries. I know that. But they'll twist it. They'll say you're punishing them through the children, that you're trying to control them with money. You need to be prepared for that narrative. I think about this. What if I establish a trust for the children? Something that benefits them directly, but that Tristan and Saffron can't touch? Rebecca smiles. That's actually perfect. It demonstrates that you're prioritizing the children's welfare while protecting them from their parents' financial mismanagement. It shows forethought and care, not vindictiveness. How much should I put in? That depends on your overall estate value and what you can afford, but enough that it's meaningful, enough that when Pearl and Finn turn 25, they'll have a real foundation: college funds, down payments on first homes, seed money for businesses. Think about what would actually help them build independent lives. I do the math in my head. My estate is worth approximately $12 million, not counting the value of my business. If I liquidate some investments, if I sell the Greenwich house eventually and downsize, $3 million, I say. $1.5 million each, accessible at 25, with provisions for education expenses before that if needed. Rebecca nods approvingly. That's generous. That's the kind of thing that demonstrates genuine love and care for the children's future. Now, what about the rest of your estate? I want to donate $2 million to charities, organizations that help elderly people who've been financially abused by family members, organizations that support financial literacy and independence. That's going to sting when Tristan finds out. Good. Maybe it'll teach him something about how his behavior is perceived. And the remainder? I haven't decided yet. Maybe I'll travel. Maybe I'll start a foundation. Maybe I'll live long enough to spend it all myself. Rebecca laughs at that. You're 68 years old. 58. I'm sorry, 58. You could easily live another 30 or 40 years. You might want to keep enough liquid assets to enjoy those years. That's the plan. I've worked my entire life. Maybe it's time to actually enjoy the fruits of that labor instead of watching them get drained away by someone who doesn't appreciate them. We spend another hour going over details. Rebecca explains the process for petitioning for grandparent visitation rights, the timeline, the likely outcomes. She's realistic but encouraging. You have a strong case, she tells me, especially if you can document emotional or financial instability on the parents' part. The debt, the spending beyond their means, the fact that they've been dependent on you, all of that matters. What about the comment Pearl made about her parents discussing whether I'd fall down the stairs? Rebecca's expression sharpens. Your granddaughter said that? Yes, last week. She was upset and scared, and she wanted to warn me. That changes things. That's potentially a child welfare issue. If a 7-year-old is hearing her parents discuss harm coming to a family member, even speculatively, that's concerning. I'd like to bring in a child psychologist to evaluate the home environment. Won't that make things worse with Tristan? Probably. But your priority here is the children's safety and well-being, not your son's feelings. If there's even a possibility that they're being exposed to inappropriate conversations or that they're being used as pawns in adult conflicts, we need to document it. I feel sick thinking about it. Pearl, my sensitive, worried Pearl, hearing her parents talk about me that way. Carrying that burden. Being scared enough to come to me. Do it, I say. Whatever we need to do to protect them. When I leave Rebecca's office, it's early afternoon. I have 5 hours before my appointment with Harold, my estate attorney, so I walk. I walk through Midtown, past the crowds and the traffic and the endless energy of Manhattan. I walk until my feet hurt in my heels, and then I find a shoe store and buy a pair of comfortable flats and keep walking. I think about Nathaniel. What would he say if he could see what's happened? Would he blame me for cutting off his son? Or would he finally understand that indulgence and love are not the same thing? Part of me wishes he were here to fix this. Part of me is angry at him for creating this mess in the first place. Part of me knows that blame is useless. He's been dead for 8 years, and I made my own choices during that time. I think about my own parents, both gone now. My father, who worked 30 years as a teacher and retired on a modest pension. My mother, who stretched every dollar and made miracles happen with a tight budget. They would be horrified at how much money I've given Tristan. They would be disappointed that I let it go on this long. But they would also understand the loneliness that drove it, the desperate need to be needed, the fear of being abandoned, the willingness to pay any price to keep family close. At 4:30, I'm sitting in Harold's office in Greenwich, back in my own territory. Harold Patterson has been my attorney for 20 years. He handled Nathaniel's estate, he's managed my business contracts, he knows every detail of my financial life. He's 72 years old, white-haired and kind-eyed, and when I walk in looking exhausted, he pours me a scotch without asking. Rough weekend? He asks. You could say that. I heard about the birthday dinner. Small town, big mouths. I shouldn't be surprised. Greenwich is a small world at the top. Everyone knows everyone else's business. What did you hear? That your son made an inappropriate toast and you left your own party. That there's been some family tension. Family tension, that's one way to put it. I take a sip of the scotch. It burns going down, but it's grounding. Harold, I need to make significant changes to my will. He pulls out a legal pad. I'm listening. I tell him everything. The trust for the grandchildren, the charitable donations, the $1 inheritance for Tristan. He takes notes, asks clarifying questions, and doesn't judge. When I'm finished, he sets down his pen and looks at me seriously. You understand this will be contested? I know. Tristan will argue you were under duress, that you were emotionally compromised, that someone influenced you. Let him argue. I'm documenting everything. I'm having this conversation with you while completely sober and sound of mind. I'm making these decisions after careful consideration and with full understanding of the consequences. And you're certain this is what you want? Harold, I've given my son $380,000 in 3 years. I've enabled his financial irresponsibility, his sense of entitlement, his complete lack of accountability. I've done it because I was lonely and scared and desperate to hold on to the only family I had left after Nathaniel died. But I'm done. I'm done being used. I'm done being disrespected. I'm done funding a lifestyle I don't even agree with for someone who treats me with contempt. Harold nods slowly. Then let's make sure this will is airtight. Let's make sure that when Tristan tries to contest it, and he will, he fails. We work until 7 o'clock, drafting the new will, making sure every word is precise, every provision is clear. The trust for Pearl and Finn with specific conditions and protections. The donations to specific charities with detailed instructions. The $1 for Tristan with explicit language stating that this is deliberate and that I am of sound mind and body. When we're finished, Harold walks me to the door. Aurelia, I've known you a long time. I've never seen you like this. Like what? Strong, clear, certain. For years, you've been tentative about everything except your business. But right now, you're not tentative at all. That's because for the first time in 8 years, I know exactly what I'm doing. Good. He shakes my hand. Then I'll have the final documents ready for signature by Thursday. And Aurelia? For what it's worth, I think you're doing the right thing. I drive home to my empty house in Greenwich. The house that I bought with my own money, that I filled with furniture and art and memories, that I've maintained meticulously for 23 years. The house where, on Friday night, my son humiliated me in front of strangers. The house that suddenly feels less like a home and more like a monument to wasted effort. I pour myself another scotch and sit on the couch in the living room, looking around at everything I've built. And I think about Tuesday, tomorrow, when I'll sign the new will and officially leave my son his surprise. $1. A lifetime of lessons he refused to learn, compressed into a single deliberate insult. It feels exactly right. Tuesday morning, I wake up with absolute clarity. No hesitation, no second guessing, no voice in my head telling me to reconsider. I shower, dress in a navy suit that I bought for myself 3 years ago when I closed the biggest deal of my career, and drive to Harold's office. The documents are waiting for me, printed on cream-colored paper with my name at the top in elegant script. Last Will and Testament of Aurelia Constance Mercer. Harold walks me through each provision one more time, making sure I understand exactly what I'm signing. The $3 million trust for Pearl and Finn, structured so that Tristan and Saffron cannot access it, cannot borrow against it, cannot manipulate it in any way. The $2 million in charitable donations split between organizations that help elderly victims of financial abuse and programs that teach financial literacy to young adults. My business, Mercer Luxury Properties, to be sold upon my death with proceeds divided between my employees based on years of service, the people who actually helped me build something, who showed loyalty, who earned it, and then the final provision. To my son, Tristan Nathaniel Mercer, I leave the sum of $1 to be paid in cash within 30 days of my death. This bequest is intentional and reflects my sound judgment and free will. Once you sign this, it's binding, Harold reminds me. You can change it later if you want, but this becomes your official will the moment you put pen to paper. I know. I pick up the Mont Blanc pen, a gift I bought myself when I made my first $1 million in commissions, and I sign my name. Aurelia C. Mercer. The signature is steady, clear, completely certain. Harold witnesses it, his assistant witnesses it, and just like that, it's done. The surprise is official. I need to tell him, I say, as Harold places the documents in a secure file. I need to tell Tristan what I've done. Are you sure that's wise? Usually people don't disclose their estate plans. Usually people don't have sons who threaten to withhold grandchildren unless the money keeps flowing. I want him to know. I want him to understand that the leverage he thinks he has is worthless, that I've already protected Pearl and Finn, and there's nothing left for him to hold over my head. Harold considers this. If you're going to tell him, do it in a public place. Don't do it alone in your house or his apartment. Do it somewhere with witnesses, somewhere he can't make a scene or claim you said things you didn't say. I'll call him, ask him to meet me for lunch. Good. And Aurelia? Document everything. Record the conversation if Connecticut allows it. And we do, as long as one party consents. Keep texts, emails, everything. If this gets ugly, you'll need proof. I leave Harold's office feeling lighter than I've felt in years. It's done. The decision is made, the documents are signed, and there's no going back. Part of me expected to feel guilty or sad or conflicted. Instead, I feel free. I sit in my car in the parking lot and call Tristan. He doesn't answer. I'm not surprised. We haven't spoken since Sunday when he threatened to keep my grandchildren from me. I leave a voicemail, keeping my voice neutral and calm. Tristan, it's your mother. I'd like to meet you for lunch today. There's something important we need to discuss. I'll be at the Oak Room at 1 o'clock. I hope you'll join me. The Oak Room is a restaurant in downtown Greenwich, upscale but not stuffy, with private booths and excellent service. More importantly, it's public enough that Tristan won't cause a scene, but private enough that we can have a real conversation. He doesn't call back. At 12:45, I'm sitting in a corner booth with a glass of sparkling water, checking my phone every few minutes. At 1 o'clock, he's not here. At 1:15, I start to think he's not coming. At 1:20, he walks in. He looks tired. There are dark circles under his eyes, and his suit, the Tom Ford suit I bought him 2 Christmases ago, $2,800, looks wrinkled. He sees me and walks over, sliding into the booth across from me without greeting. I almost didn't come, he says. But you did. Saffron told me not to. She said you're being manipulative, that this is some kind of power play. And what do you think? He doesn't answer. The waiter comes over and Tristan orders a scotch. At 1:30 in the afternoon, I order a salad even though I'm not hungry. When the waiter leaves, we sit in silence for a moment. I signed my new will this morning, I say finally. His head snaps up. What? I met with my attorney. I made significant changes to my estate plans. I thought you should know. What kind of changes? I've established a $3 million trust for Pearl and Finn. $1.5 million each, accessible when they turn 25. It's protected. You and Saffron can't touch it, can't borrow against it, can't use it for anything. Education expenses can be paid from it before they turn 25, but only with approval from the trustees. He's staring at me, processing. That's generous. For the kids. Yes, for the kids, not for you. Okay, so what about the rest? $2 million is going to charity. Organizations that help elderly people who've been financially abused by family members and programs that teach financial literacy. The color drains from his face. You're comparing me to someone who abuses elderly people? I'm protecting other people from ending up in situations like mine, where they sacrifice and give and fund someone else's life and get nothing but contempt in return. Mom, this is insane. You can't. And you, Tristan, are receiving $1. Exactly $1. To be paid in cash within 30 days of my death. The scotch arrives. Tristan picks it up and drains half of it in one swallow. When he sets the glass down, his hand is shaking. $1. $1. You're leaving your only son $1. Yes. Because of a stupid joke at a birthday dinner. No, because of 8 years of financial exploitation. Because of $380,000 taken for granted. Because of the contempt you've shown me, the disrespect, the entitlement. The toast was just the moment I finally saw clearly what our relationship had become. You can't do this. I'll contest it. I'll get a lawyer, and I'll contest it, and I'll prove you're not in your right mind. Go ahead. Harold made sure the will is airtight. I was examined by my doctor last week, perfect health, physically and mentally. The will explicitly states that I'm of sound mind and judgment. I was witnessed by multiple people. I documented everything. You won't win, Tristan. You'll just waste money on lawyers, which honestly seems fitting given how you've wasted my money for years. He's breathing hard now, his face flushed. What about Pearl and Finn? What about your grandchildren? You said you'd never cut them off. And I haven't. They're taken care of. $3 million taken care of. What I've cut off is you using them as leverage to extort money from me. I've already filed for grandparent visitation rights. I have documentation of my relationship with them, proof of my involvement in their lives, and testimony about the threats you've made. A family court judge will decide whether you can keep them from me, not you. Testimony? What testimony? Who? He stops. His eyes widen. Pearl. You got Pearl to say something. Pearl came to me because she was scared. Because she heard you and Saffron discussing whether I might have an accident, whether I might fall down the stairs. A 7-year-old shouldn't have to carry that kind of fear, Tristan. A 7-year-old shouldn't hear her parents talking about harm coming to her grandmother. It wasn't serious. Saffron was upset and she was venting. We would never, maybe not. But the fact that you had that conversation at all, where your daughter could hear it, tells me everything I need to know about the environment those children are living in. The waiter brings our food. Neither of us touches it. Tristan is staring at me like he's never seen me before. Maybe he hasn't. Maybe he's only ever seen the version of me that said yes, that gave in, that funded everything without question. You've changed, he says finally. No, I've just stopped pretending. I've stopped letting loneliness and guilt drive my decisions. I've stopped buying love that was never really for sale in the first place. So that's it? You're just done with me? Your only son and you're just writing me off? I'm giving you exactly what you've given me, Tristan. Nothing. Well, slightly more than nothing. $1 whole more. He stands up abruptly, nearly knocking over his scotch. You're going to regret this. When you're old and alone and you need someone, you're going to regret this. I'm already old, according to you, and I'd rather be alone than be with people who only value me for my bank account. He leaves, walks out of the restaurant without looking back, without paying for his drink. I sit there in the booth, surrounded by the lunch crowd's chatter and the clink of silverware, and I finish my sparkling water. The waiter comes over, concerned. Is everything all right, ma'am? Everything's perfect, I tell him, and I mean it. The surprise has been delivered. Now we wait to see what happens next. The call comes 3 days later. Friday afternoon, I'm at my office reviewing contracts when my phone rings with a number I don't recognize. I almost don't answer, but something makes me pick up. Is this Aurelia Mercer? A woman's voice, professional but warm. Yes, this is she. Mrs. Mercer, this is Detective Lisa Chen with the Greenwich Police Department. I need to ask you some questions about a report that was filed yesterday. Do you have a few minutes? My stomach drops. What kind of report? Your son, Tristan Mercer, filed a report claiming you've been acting erratically. He expressed concern about your mental state and suggested you might be a danger to yourself or others. He also mentioned that you've been making threats regarding your grandchildren. I close my eyes. Of course. Of course this is how he'd respond. Detective, I haven't threatened anyone. I've filed for grandparent visitation rights, which is a legal process. And I recently changed my will, which is also legal. My son is upset about both of those things. I understand, but I need to follow up on the report. Would you be willing to come to the station to answer some questions? Or I could come to you. I'll come to the station. When? Would today work? Say 4 o'clock? I look at my watch. It's 2:30. I'll be there. I call Harold immediately. He answers on the second ring, and I explain what's happening. There's a long pause. He's trying to establish a record, Harold says. If he can get police documentation of you being investigated, even if nothing comes of it, he can use it to contest the will. He'll argue you were mentally unstable. That's insane. I'm not unstable. I know that. But perception matters. Here's what you're going to do. You're going to go to that station with me. You're going to answer every question calmly and professionally. You're going to provide documentation of everything: the bank transfers to Tristan, the evidence of financial exploitation, the recording of Pearl's statement about what she overheard. You're going to turn this around on him. Harold meets me at the Greenwich police station at 3:45. We're escorted to a small conference room where Detective Chen is waiting. She's maybe 40, Asian American, with kind eyes that I immediately trust. She shakes both our hands and gestures for us to sit. Mrs. Mercer, thank you for coming in. I want to be clear that you're not under investigation for anything. I'm simply following up on your son's report to determine if there's any validity to his concerns. I understand. He claims you've been acting out of character, making impulsive financial decisions, threatening family members. He's worried about your mental state. Harold pulls a folder from his briefcase. Detective, we anticipated these accusations. Mrs. Mercer has comprehensive documentation that tells a very different story. Over the next hour, I lay it all out. The bank records showing $380,000 transferred to Tristan in 3 years, the pattern of increasing requests, the evidence of his debts, his spending beyond his means, his complete financial dependence on me. The recording of my conversation with Pearl, where my 7-year-old granddaughter warned me about her parents' conversation regarding potential harm to me. Detective Chen listens to everything, taking notes. When we finish, she sits back and looks at me with what I think might be respect. Mrs. Mercer, from what I'm seeing here, you're not the one who's unstable. You're someone who's been financially exploited and is finally setting boundaries. That's not a crime. That's self-preservation. That's what I've been trying to tell my son. The recording of your granddaughter, that concerns me. A child that age expressing fear about conversations regarding harm to a family member is serious. Have you reported this to Child Protective Services? Not yet. My family attorney advised me to document everything first. I think you should file a report, not because I think your grandchildren are in immediate danger, but because there needs to be a record. If the parents are having inappropriate conversations where the children can hear them, that's concerning. Harold nods. We'll file today. Detective Chen closes her notebook. Mrs. Mercer, I'm going to document this conversation and close your son's report as unfounded. If he continues to harass you or make false reports, that could constitute harassment or filing a false police report. You might want to consider a restraining order if his behavior escalates. I hope it doesn't come to that. So do I. But in my experience, when money and family mix, things tend to get worse before they get better. We leave the police station, and I feel simultaneously vindicated and exhausted. Harold walks me to my car. That went as well as it could have, he says. But Aurelia, you need to prepare yourself. Tristan is escalating. The police report, the accusations, he's building a case. He's not going to accept this quietly. What else can he do? Anything. Everything. He could sue you for undue influence, claiming someone manipulated you into changing the will. He could try to have you declared incompetent. He could make your life miserable in a dozen different ways. Then what do? You document everything. You stay calm. You don't engage unless necessary. And you remember why you did this in the first place. I drive home as the sun sets over Greenwich, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. My phone rings twice, Tristan's number, and I don't answer. He leaves voicemails that I don't listen to. When I get home, there's a car in my driveway, Saffron's BMW, the one I helped them buy 2 years ago with a $40,000 down payment. She's sitting on my front steps, still in her work clothes. When she sees me, she stands up. Her face is red, and I can tell she's been crying. We need to talk, she says. I don't think that's a good idea. Please, just 5 minutes. Against my better judgment, I unlock the door and let her in. We stand in my foyer, neither of us moving to sit down. This isn't going to be a long conversation. You're destroying our family, Saffron says. Her voice is shaking. Do you understand that? You're tearing us apart. I'm setting boundaries. There's a difference. Boundaries? You're cutting Tristan off completely. You're leaving him $1 in your will. How is that boundaries? That's cruelty. What's cruel is spending 8 years taking hundreds of thousands of dollars from someone and then humiliating them at their own birthday dinner. What's cruel is threatening to keep grandchildren away from their grandmother unless the money keeps flowing. What's cruel is having conversations about whether I might have an accident where your 7-year-old daughter can hear you. Saffron's face goes white. Pearl told you about that. Yes, because she was scared. Because she loves me and she was worried about me. That was taken out of context. We would never, it was just venting. I was upset and I said something stupid and I didn't know she was listening. But she was listening, and now she's traumatized, and that's on you, not me. You filed a CPS report. The detective told us. You filed a report on us. I filed a report documenting concerning behavior. Because Pearl deserves to grow up in an environment where she's not exposed to conversations about harm coming to family members. Because Finn deserves parents who are financially stable and not dependent on handouts. Because those children deserve better than what you and Tristan are providing. Saffron's face crumples. She sinks down onto my stairs, her designer handbag, Celine, $2,800, birthday gift from me last year, falling to the floor beside her. We're going to lose everything, the apartment, the car, everything. Without your help, we can't afford any of it. Then downsize. Move somewhere you can afford. Live within your means. Do what millions of other families do every single day. You don't understand what it's like. The pressure to maintain a certain image. The expectations. I understand perfectly. I grew up with nothing. I put myself through college working 3 jobs. I know exactly what it's like to struggle. What I don't understand is why you think you're entitled to skip that struggle on someone else's dime. Because you're family. Because that's what family does. They help each other. Help, yes. Enable financial irresponsibility and tolerate disrespect? No, that's not help, Saffron. That's codependency. And I'm done with it. She looks up at me with mascara running down her cheeks. What about Pearl and Finn? What about the fact that they're losing their grandmother? They're not losing me. They have a $3 million trust fund that will set them up for life when they turn 25. They have a grandmother who's fighting for the legal right to stay in their lives. What they're losing is parents who use them as leverage to manipulate money from family members. And honestly, that's probably for the best. Tristan was right. You have changed. You're not the woman who raised him. No, I'm the woman who's finally remembering who she was before grief and loneliness turned her into a doormat. I'm the woman who built a $12 million business from nothing. I'm the woman who survived losing her husband and didn't fall apart. That woman got lost for a while, but she's back now, and she's done being used. Saffron stands up, grabs her purse, and walks to the door. She pauses with her hand on the handle and turns back to look at me. You're going to end up alone, she says, old and bitter and alone. And you'll have no one to blame but yourself. Maybe. But at least I'll have my dignity and my bank account, which is more than I can say for what I had before. She leaves, slamming the door hard enough to rattle the windows. I stand there in my foyer, in the house I bought with my own money, and I feel nothing but relief. My phone buzzes. A text from B. How are you holding up? Me. Police station. CPS report. Saffron just left my house. I'm fine. B. I'm coming over. Me. You don't have to. B. I know, but I am anyway. She arrives 20 minutes later with Thai food and a bottle of wine. We eat on my couch, not talking about Tristan or Saffron or any of it. We talk about her gallery, about a new artist she's representing, about the trip to Italy she's planning for next spring. Normal things, friend things, things that have nothing to do with money or obligation or family drama. You're really okay, B says finally. It's not a question. I really am. No regrets? Not even one. Good, because tomorrow we're going shopping, we're buying you a whole new wardrobe, something that makes you feel like the badass businesswoman you are. I don't need new clothes. Yes, you do. You need to dress like someone who just fired her ungrateful son from her bank account. You need to dress like someone who's starting a new chapter. You need power clothes, Aurelia, and I'm going to help you find them. I laugh. It feels good, natural. Okay, tomorrow we'll go shopping. That night, I sleep better than I have in weeks. No anxiety, no second guessing, no waking up at 3 a.m. wondering if I made the right choice. I sleep the deep, dreamless sleep of someone who's finally put down a burden they've been carrying too long. Sunday morning, I wake to my phone ringing. Unknown number again. I almost don't answer, but something, maybe just instinct, makes me pick up. Mrs. Mercer, this is Rebecca Goldstein, the family attorney you consulted with on Monday. Yes, I remember. Is everything okay? I wanted to let you know that Tristan and Saffron's attorney filed a response to your grandparent visitation petition. They're fighting it. They're claiming you're mentally unstable, that you're a danger to the children, and that your recent behavior proves you're unfit for unsupervised visitation. My stomach tightens, but my voice stays calm. Based on what evidence? Based on the police report Tristan filed, which has already been documented as unfounded. Based on claims that you've made threatening statements, which you haven't. Based on the fact that you changed your will, which is your legal right. Basically, they're throwing everything at the wall to see what sticks. What do? We fight back. We present our evidence. The financial exploitation, the inappropriate conversations overheard by Pearl, the pattern of manipulation. We bring in the detective who interviewed you. We show the court exactly who's really unstable here, and it's not you. But Aurelia, I need you to understand something. This is going to get ugly. This is going to be public. Details of your finances, your family relationships, everything. It's all going to come out in court. I don't care. I want to see my grandchildren. Then we go to war. Court date is set for 3 weeks from now. I'll send you everything you need to prepare. When I hang up, I realize I'm shaking. Not from fear, from anger. Pure, righteous anger. Tristan is willing to drag his own children through court proceedings, to expose them to this ugliness, to potentially traumatize them further, all because he can't accept that the money train has stopped. I text B. Shopping is canceled. We're going to need a lawyer strategy session instead. B. Already on it. I'll bring coffee and legal pads. I look around my house, my beautiful, expensive, carefully decorated house, and I realize something. This isn't home anymore. This is just the place where everything fell apart. The place where Tristan humiliated me. The place where I finally woke up. Maybe I think when this is all over, I'll sell it. Move somewhere new. Start completely fresh. Miami, maybe. Or Charleston. Somewhere warm where nobody knows my story, and I can just be Aurelia, not Tristan Mercer's mother or Nathaniel Mercer's widow. Just me. Finally, after all these years, just me. The thought should be terrifying. Instead, it feels like possibility. The courtroom is smaller than I expected. Fluorescent lights, wooden benches, the smell of old paper and anxiety. I'm sitting with Rebecca at one table, Tristan and Saffron at another with their attorney, a sharp-looking woman in her 40s who probably cost them money they don't have. They won't look at me. Haven't looked at me since we arrived 20 minutes ago. Pearl and Finn aren't here, thank God. They're with a court-appointed social worker who's been evaluating the situation for the past 3 weeks. I've met with her twice. Long conversations about my relationship with my grandchildren, my financial history with Tristan, my reasons for changing my will. She was thorough, professional, and I couldn't read her at all. The judge enters, Judge Patricia Morrison, 60-something, gray hair pulled back severely, reading glasses on a chain around her neck. She looks tired, like she's seen 1,000 cases just like this one and knows exactly how it's going to end before we even start. This is a petition for grandparent visitation, she begins, looking at her papers. Mrs. Aurelia Mercer seeking court-ordered access to her grandchildren. Pearl age 7 and Finn age 5, against the wishes of the parents, Tristan and Saffron Mercer. I've reviewed all submitted materials. Let's hear from the petitioner first. Rebecca stands. She's wearing a navy suit that means business, and her voice is clear and confident. Your Honor, Mrs. Mercer has been an active, loving presence in her grandchildren's lives since birth. She has documentation of consistent contact, photos, text messages, emails spanning 7 years. She's attended school events, birthday parties, provided childcare, and maintained a close emotional bond with both children. This relationship was severed not due to any action on Mrs. Mercer's part, but because she established financial boundaries with her adult son. She lays it all out. The $380,000, the pattern of dependency, the threats Tristan made about withholding the children, Pearl's statement about the conversation she overheard, the police report that was filed against me and subsequently documented as unfounded, the trust fund I established for the children's future. Tristan's attorney stands. Your Honor, Mrs. Mercer has exhibited erratic behavior, including sudden, drastic changes to her estate plan that suggest possible cognitive decline or undue influence. She's created an environment of conflict that's harmful to the children. The parents have a right to determine who has access to their children, especially when that person has demonstrated instability. The only instability, Rebecca counters, has been the parents' complete financial dependence on Mrs. Mercer coupled with their hostile reaction to reasonable boundaries. The children are being used as weapons in a financial dispute, which is precisely the kind of environment this court should protect them from. Judge Morrison holds up her hand. I've read the social worker's report. Mrs. Mercer, would you please stand? My legs feel shaky as I rise, but I keep my back straight, my hands steady. Mrs. Mercer, why did you change your will? Your Honor, I spent 8 years funding my son's lifestyle far beyond his means. I did it out of grief and loneliness after my husband died. I told myself I was helping him, but I was actually enabling financial irresponsibility and teaching my grandchildren that money comes without effort or consequences. When my son publicly humiliated me at my birthday dinner, it was a wake-up call. I realized I was hurting, not helping. So I established a trust fund that will actually benefit Pearl and Finn when they're adults, and I stopped the pattern that was damaging all of us. And the $1 bequest to your son was intentional, to demonstrate that I hadn't forgotten him. I'd made a choice. That this wasn't oversight or incompetence, it was a decision based on years of experience. Do you love your grandchildren? More than anything in the world, Your Honor. Do you believe you're a positive influence in their lives? Yes, I believe I can teach them things their parents can't or won't. Financial responsibility, self-sufficiency, the difference between love and manipulation. Judge Morrison nods and gestures for me to sit. Mr. Mercer, stand please. Tristan stands. He looks thinner than he did 3 weeks ago. The suit, one I didn't buy him, which means they're spending money they don't have on legal appearances, hangs slightly loose. Mr. Mercer, how much money has your mother given you in the past 3 years? He hesitates. I don't know the exact amount. $380,000 according to the bank records. Does that sound approximately correct? I suppose. Were these gifts or loans? I intended to pay her back. But you haven't. Not yet. But I will when what? When you get promoted. You're 32 years old, Mr. Mercer. If you haven't achieved financial stability by now, what makes you think you will in the future while continuing to live beyond your means? Tristan doesn't answer. His attorney touches his arm, and he sits down. Judge Morrison removes her reading glasses. I'm going to be very direct. This court sees cases like this regularly. Adult children who've been overindulged seeking to maintain access to parental resources by any means necessary, including weaponizing grandchildren. It's destructive, it's selfish, and it's harmful to the children caught in the middle. She looks at her papers again. The social worker's report indicates that Pearl has expressed anxiety about the family conflict. that she's asked repeatedly when she can see her grandmother, that she's internalized blame for the situation because she told her grandmother about a conversation she overheard. A 7-year-old should not be carrying that burden. Saffron is crying now, quiet tears running down her face. Tristan is staring at the table. I'm granting Mrs. Mercer's petition for grandparent visitation. She will have access to Pearl and Finn 2 weekends per month, plus alternating holidays, plus 4 weeks during summer vacation. These visits will be unsupervised because there is zero evidence that Mrs. Mercer poses any danger to these children. Quite the opposite. She appears to be one of the few stable, responsible adults in their lives. Rebecca squeezes my hand under the table. I feel tears threatening, but I hold them back. Furthermore, Judge Morrison continues, I'm ordering family counseling for all parties. Mr. and Mrs. Mercer will attend sessions focused on financial boundaries and healthy family relationships. Pearl will have access to a child therapist to process the anxiety she's been experiencing. And if there are any further attempts to weaponize these children or interfere with court-ordered visitation, I will revisit custody arrangements. Am I clear? Yes, Your Honor, both attorneys say simultaneously. Good. Court is adjourned. The gavel comes down, and it's over. 3 weeks of stress and preparation and anxiety, resolved in 45 minutes. Rebecca is grinning, gathering papers, already talking about filing the formal orders. I'm just sitting there, processing the fact that I won, that I get to see Pearl and Finn, that the court saw through Tristan's manipulation and called it exactly what it was. Outside the courthouse, Bea is waiting on the steps. She takes one look at my face and knows. She wraps me in a hug so tight I can barely breathe. You did it, she whispers. You actually did it. We did it, I correct her. I couldn't have done any of this without you. That evening, I'm back in my house, the house that still doesn't feel like home but might someday again, when my phone rings. It's a number I don't recognize, but by now I've learned to answer those. Grandma? Pearl's voice, small and hopeful. Pearl? Baby, how did you… Daddy let me call. The judge said we get to see you, 2 weekends every month and summer and everything. Yes, sweetheart, yes we do. I'm sorry I told you about what I heard. I didn't mean to cause trouble. My heart breaks a little. Pearl, listen to me very carefully. You did nothing wrong. Nothing. You were brave and honest and you protected someone you love. That's never something to apologize for. Okay. A pause. I miss you. I miss you too, baby. So much. But I'll see you this weekend. We can do whatever you want. Park, museum, ice cream. Can Finn come too? Of course Finn can come. I miss both of you. Okay. I have to go now. Daddy's waiting. But I love you, Grandma. I love you too, Pearl. So very much. After she hangs up, I sit in my living room with my phone in my hand, and I finally let myself cry. Not sad tears. Relief tears. Victory tears. Tears for everything that was lost and everything that was found. Tears for the woman I was 8 years ago and the woman I am now. Monday morning, I'm at my office when my phone buzzes with a text from an unknown number. Against my better judgment, I open it. It's from Tristan. You won. Are you happy now? I stare at the message for a long moment. Then I type back, I'm not happy that it came to this, but I'm happy that I finally chose myself. I'm happy that Pearl and Finn are protected. I'm happy that I remembered I'm worth more than being someone's emergency fund. So yes, Tristan, I'm happy. He doesn't respond. I didn't expect him to. 6 months later, I'm sitting on the beach in Charleston, South Carolina. I sold the Greenwich house 3 weeks ago for $11 million, bought a smaller place here, a historic townhouse near the water, 3 bedrooms, perfect for when Pearl and Finn visit. I still run my business remotely, but I've promoted my senior associate to managing partner. I'm thinking about retirement, thinking about what I want to do with the rest of my life now that I'm not spending it funding someone else's. My phone rings. It's Bea. How's Charleston? Beautiful, warm, peaceful. Everything Greenwich wasn't. Good, you sound happy. I am happy. For the first time in 8 years, I'm actually happy. You earned it, Aurelia. Every bit of it. After we hang up, I walk down to the water. The Atlantic stretches out endless and blue, and I think about that Tuesday 6 months ago when I signed my new will. When I left my son his surprise. When I finally chose myself. $1. It seemed cruel at the time. Now it seems generous. Because the real gift wasn't what I gave him. It was what I gave myself. Freedom. And that, it turns out, is priceless.